Cynthia Wilkening is a scientist turned poet, using haiku to bridge the gap between Christian faith and science. Her book, Water is Faithful, Haiku for Mind, Body and Soul, offers a unique perspective on the interplay of faith and science in our modern world. And Cynthia joins us now. How are you today?
I'm very good, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So, what was the inspiration behind the title of the book, Water is Faithful?
Well, I wanted a title that was unique. I searched several titles that I thought might be appropriate for haiku, but they'd already been taken many times over. And the first poem in my book is Water is Faithful. And I thought, yes, and that really describes what I want to say, because there's a passage in Isaiah that reads as this: as the rain and the snow come down from heaven and do not return to it without watering the earth and making it bud and flourish, so that it yields seed for the sower and bread for the eater, so is my word that goes out from my mouth. It will not return to me empty, but will accomplish what I desire and achieve the purpose for which I sent it. And
Yeah.
that's God speaking. And so I see my book as a go-between between people who really don't know much about Christianity, have an interest, and those people that it bridges a gap.
Yeah.
And for between that and the Bible.
Do you think it's important to bridge the gap between Christianity and science?
I think it does, because right now, as I mentioned in one of my writings for this interview,
Yeah.
that there's a lot of animosity between Christianity and science. And I think part of it is ignorance on both sides. The scientists really don't understand Christianity, and the Christians really don't understand science. And some of the poems that I have are designed to make both sides think.
Yeah.
To take away the anger and think about just what is at stake here.
So what do you think is the cause of this increasing animosity?
I think people are just sort of digging into their own camps. There's no real interest in learning about the other side, and I don't know why that is, because it wasn't true when Jimmy Carter was president, and he was a Democrat and he was a Christian.
Yeah.
And I don't recall that being a time of great social strife between Christians and scientists.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly what happened, but something definitely did. And so I see my book as something that both Christians and non-Christians and scientists and non-scientists can read and think about things, and maybe it will make them pick up the Bible and read it. And you have to read the whole Bible, the Old Testament and the New Testament.
Yeah. It's interesting because there seems to be so many things at the moment that there's increased animosity, people's views on certain issues, and the animosity between the Christian faith and science probably makes the least sense because they're not mutually exclusive, are they?
Right. No, they're not. No, definitely. The early scientists, Galileo, and some of the early scientists in the last 1,000 years or so, they were faithful people. They were, they saw science as a way to worship God. And a way of understanding how this wonderful God brought us here. And I don't see that in this country. And interestingly enough, there was a video I watched once that was called More Than My Brain. And it interviewed a lot of people in Europe who are actually studying the whole idea of science and the brain and faith. And that many scientists in this country, especially psychiatrists, feel that anything that you experience is within the brain in terms of phenomena or whatever.
Wow.
And it just seems obvious to a lot of non-scientists that that's not true. there are spiritual forces. And interestingly enough, this video had to interview scientists, as I might have already said, had to interview
Yeah.
scientists in Europe
Yeah.
because it doesn't appear that scientists in America are even studying that. The idea that there is more than the brain that affects the brain and affects behavior, affects society. There's a lot at stake here.
I suppose on the other hand, there's so much about the brain that we don't know. So I guess it's entirely possible that there's all sorts of things going on in it.
Right. Oh, yes. We're barely, scratch the surface of how the brain works. But there are a lot of situations where you say, well, I don't really think that came from my brain.
For this book, Water is Faithful, the opening poem on page 2 mentions how only God could do it right when it comes to creating something from nothing. So
Yes.
what is the significance of that idea, and how does it tie into your exploration of God's determination to spread his word?
The idea that something from nothing has been kind of debunked by science, but once upon a time, there was no time or matter. And the companion poem on the page, get it here, page 4,
Yeah.
page 4, singularity manifested in Jesus. The Big Bang was his. And I have to say that I can't take credit for that idea. I got the idea from a 14-year-old autistic boy who in our informal Sunday school class just blurted out, Jesus is the singularity. And for scientists, the singularity is that micro moment before the Big Bang.
Yeah.
What caused the Big Bang? And what this young boy brought to my thoughts was it was Jesus' idea and it was God's idea. He wanted matter. He wanted family. Matter matters.
Yeah.
And he created the universe. And with I guess it's the Webb telescope now, we're seeing back billions of years into the past with the beginning of the universe. And I don't think it's a coincidence that we're seeing that now. And I think even the scientists are at awe with a lot of theories had kind of fallen aside with the discovery of some of the images from the telescope.
Yeah. Could you share a particular haiku with us from your collection?
Well, yes. I would like to continue for just a little bit on the one that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Something from nothing, only God could do it right, spirit births matter. I find it compelling that God created matter because that makes us matter. There's so much existentialism today. This idea that we're here for a short time on Earth, eat, drink, and be merry. It just doesn't. And it doesn't allow for the fact that there's evil. And I think a lot of, especially young people, are finding it very difficult to realize that they have value. And a lot of people in other cultures, because of their culture, have no value. And God is in the business of people being of value to him. And it doesn't necessarily mean, that you make $1 million or something. The value is intrinsic in you because you were created by God. And so that's why where matter comes from matters.
Yeah. Haiku is kind of a unique form of poetry, isn't it? So what actually drew you to that particular style?
Well, I like it because it forces you to distill down an idea or a thought or whatever into 3 lines of 5, 7, 5 syllables. And generally doesn't use much punctuation. Some of mine do, just to make things clear. And I was drawn to the fact that in a traditional Japanese form, it's mostly about nature or Buddha. And I decided, well, I think I'll use this format and present a lot of my thoughts and things that I've learned over the years, both in science and in faith. and just see how it goes. And I've been writing haiku for more than 20 years. I would write on the train going into work in Boston, the commuter train. I'd have a little notebook, and if something came to mind, I'd write it down. And I thought, well, someday I might like to publish these somewhere. And the book came about because I found a Christian poetry magazine online through the poet friend of one of my husbands, one of his friends
Yeah.
had a poem in that magazine called Creative Inspirations, and I was very well received by the owner editor. So I thought, well, maybe there's an audience for this book that I have in mind. And so starting last August, I started compiling all my poems and going through the publisher's hoops to get it to a place where it was ready to be published. And it came out in January,
Yeah.
and here it is.
Absolutely, yeah. Do you think you'll be able to write more books, maybe in haiku or maybe just completely unrelated?
Well, I'm thinking of more haiku. I'm still writing poems. Some of my poems now are I wouldn't say they're dark, but they may not be as encouraging as some perhaps in Water is Faithful. I think because I've been affected by the times as much as anything. And my poems in Water is Faithful don't cover the pandemic. The only things that I wrote during the pandemic were a couple of contemporary Christian songs, the lyrics to a couple of contemporary Christian songs that one of my co-church people and my husband and I recorded. And as far as a future book, I'm planning on another haiku book.
This book that's out at the moment is called Water is Faithful. Where are we able to find that one?
Oh, that's on Amazon and Amazon UK. It's on Amazon UK also. It's on Barnes and Noble. And the publisher is Westbow Press, and it's available through them as well. And many online bookstores other than Amazon and Barnes and Noble are also carrying it. And if you don't see it, if you go to a regular bookstore and you don't see it on the shelf, you can ask to have it ordered because it's available through Ingram, which is I assume that's a worldwide source of books for bookstores and libraries.
Excellent. Well, many thanks for talking to us today. It's been great to have you here.
Well, I thank you very much, and thank you for considering everything I say, and hope the audience finds Water is Faithful something that really gives them hope.